disappeared. And I tried to do it again. So 2.5 hours worth of video for y'all for class. And that thing's gone twice. And I'm like, all right, man, maybe I'm just supposed to be refreshed on it and bring a word. And I felt like that's what I was supposed to bring today, man. So I'm going to talk to y'all for a minute about seeing life through God's perspective. Like every one of y'all have a lens right now that you're looking at life through. I can say topics, and I guarantee you, everybody in this room could have a little bit of a different way that I could say marriage. Some of y'all think, heck no. Every experience you have of a relationship is negative, right? So the frame that you look through when I say marriage, that could be man. Some of y'all were abused, right? And I could say man. I remember when Willow came in, man, just anything to do with man, she didn't like it. You know what I mean? Why? Because of the what she went through, and that caused her to look at men through a certain frame, right? Imagine if she didn't learn to reframe that through the word of God and through life, she still would have a hate for men. She probably would have an excuse not to be with men, right? Like a lot of people do that have been abused and stuff like that, man. It could be church. You might have had someone do something really jacked up and use God's name as why they did it. And now your view of church and God is skewed, man. It's not that it is, but the framework that you're looking through skews things, right? And so we have to really, really try hard. It goes against everything in my nature to reframe things because it's real to me, right? Like what I experienced, the hurt that happened, the loss that happened, the stuff that I put in my body, and the stuff that happened when I was locked up, all those things are real, right? It happened. It's how I learned to make sense without losing my mind of what happened. And so if I don't learn to change that according to the word of God, like Romans 12 says that don't conform to the patterns of this world. Don't do what you've always done the way you've always done it. He says, but be transformed how? Renewing of your mind, right? So if you don't think different, you're never going to act different. And so we're going to talk about reframing a little bit, man. Every person in this room that you'll ever meet lives by the stories they tell themselves. Everyone, right? You got a story, things happen to you, right? And you live your life by those stories. It's just reality, man. That's everyone, right? My kids right now, even my 10-year-old is living life according to the stories of how he sees life and how he sees family and how he sees parents and all of it, man. When he stepped out to wrestle, right, he was really nervous and he was a little bit insecure, and he's built like me, so he's a little bit shorter, right? Probably shorter than most of his other guys his age. And so he was nervous and he thought, man, they're gonna dominate. And I had to teach him to reframe that view. Right? I don't want you to see life through just your story and one or two things that two people said. What I want you to do is I want you to see it through the lens of your dad, but your heavenly Father, that I made you like this for a purpose. This isn't like you're not lacking, right? You were built for this. And I had to try to get him to reframe it. But by the end of the second season, he's dominating, getting the award for Mr. Potter Mite, right? So like, but I had to teach him. If I didn't help him to reframe that thought, he would have been timid. He would have been scared all the time, and he would have lost the matches before he ever even went on the mat, right? If he didn't learn to reframe it. Some of y'all, man, have thoughts because of the stories that happened in your life about situations that are contrary to what this word says, man, and it's going to cause you to struggle in your life. You can be here and go out here. Being here doesn't do anything. My car's here all the time. There's nothing different about it. It's just sitting out there rotten, right? It's not about going to church. It's not about saying I did something, man, but we have to work hard to reframe while we're here, man. Two people can walk through the exact same circumstance. I remember one time I brought 6 people in one day. They all did the same paperwork. They all ate the same food. They all had the same people pray for them when they got here. Right, all of it. They had the same night. They had the same bedtime. It was the same temperature. The next day, they ate the same breakfast. They drank the same coffee. Right. 2 of them hated it here. They whined. They complained. They said staff's garbage. The food sucked. I'm not getting enough to eat. They gained 30 pounds, but somehow they didn't get enough to eat. Whatever, man. And then the other 4 were like, "This is the best opportunity that I've ever had." Right? This isn't punishment. This is privilege. This is something that's absolutely it's hard, and I don't want to be here, but it's changing my life. Right? Same. The facts were the same. Right? Everything was the same. Two different people, but the exact same circumstances, and they came away with totally different conclusions. So which one's right? Neither. It's that I knew it is over. This sucks. I have to give up everything fun. Right? Because that people think Christianity is just boring and you have to part your hair right and carry a Bible everywhere you go and wear a three-piece suit, right? They're like, man, I'm gonna have to get all my tattoos lasered off, and I can't ever slip up with my words ever again. And what I mean, it's crazy, man. But people get this twisted view because of people that live it wrong, and they've seen stories out there, people that say they're believers, and what that's supposed to look like, and it jacks our view up of it, man. Right? That was me, man. Growing up in church, I thought you had to play the part, be the part, never say anything, never think anything wrong, or we're just a failure. Right? So I'd go to church, I'd be like, man, I want to accept Jesus, and I would do it. Then I'd leave, and I'm like, these people are bored out of their minds. Like, they don't even want to be here. They want me to do this, but what for? And I watched them, and the stories that I've seen told me that they don't even like this, right? They're salty if it goes 3 minutes over what my dad said closing time was. Like, so what in the world? Why would I want to be this? Right? When there's so much fun things in the world, and there's so many people out there doing things that they're telling me is a sin, but they're doing it and they're laughing until they're crying, and they're in a group and they're having fun. They have friends, and I'm over here like sitting in my mom and dad's basement with a bunch of old people that don't even seem like they want to do it. And I'm like, what am I doing? Right? And I framed a story, man, that absolutely was transformed when I went to the program that I went to, and I saw really what it looked like to be a believer. I didn't say, oh man, this is the end. For me, it was a new beginning, man, right? It was amazing. One person said, this is it, it's over. The other person says, man, God's about to prepare me for something greater, right? Which one do you think is going to have the better experience at the end of it? You know what I'm saying? Nothing changed with either of those people's framework. Nothing changed except the frame. That's it. Y'all with me, man? Have some people that love when I preach, have some people that hate it. Which one's right? Just the frame that you're looking through, right? If you think preachers should have a three-piece suit and no tattoos, then you're not going to like me. I went to a church one time, and a pastor was preaching, and a whole bunch of people got up for prayer. And he said, if you're in here and you're a preacher, I want you to come up front. People need prayer. And I was like, I wasn't moving. Everybody's like, Josh, go. And I'm like, nah. I had khakis and a polo on, tucked in, dressed nice, hair was fixed all right? Put cologne on, I didn't stink. And so I'm like, all right. So I go up there and pray. And the pastor was like, hold on, son. You don't have that three-piece suit on. And he made me go sit down. And I was like, all right, this is your show. So I walked back. For a minute, I wanted to throw him off the stage and show him that I'm from the south side of the kingdom, right? Like, I wanted to flip out a little bit. But I just was calm. And when church was over, I walked outside, and the dude that I was about to pray for was on crutches. He had knee surgery. And I said, hey, man, can I still pray for you? I felt to. That's why I came to you when he said to pray. And he's like, sure. I prayed for him. This is no joke. Like 40-some men were with me. Watched it. He started jumping up and down, dude. I was even cringing, like, oh, because he had like staples in his knee still. All right. But God touched that man in the parking lot to the point where he walked out of there without crutches. All right. But why was that a big deal, man? Because for some reason, I'm not even saying the pastor, we don't know, maybe that's what he was taught. To be a pastor and to look the part, you have to look a certain way. You can't have certain things in your life, man. So the frame that he looked through that situation was way different than mine. You know what I'm saying? But it really would have affected it, man. What was the difference between his view and my view? Just the frame that we look through, right? The stories that we've experienced, what we've had happen to us. I lived this life, got radically brought out of it. Jesus changed my life, man. I had 32 years of prison that got threw away, and I went and got my life together. So I don't see it as this makes any difference in my prayers being heard. But I don't see it as I have to wear a certain thing, right, to be able for God to hear me. Where does it say that in the Bible, man? Right? It doesn't say it anywhere in the Bible, right, man? And so it's just the frame that we look through. Guys, I want you to hear something, man. A picture changes depending on the frame that's around it. Right? I want you to hear that, man. A diamond displayed in a pawn shop looks ordinary, right? You go into a pawn shop, there's a diamond, it looks ordinary, but the same exact diamond, if you take it to a jewelry store like Kay's or something that's popular out there, right? It appears like priceless because the lighting and the framework and the displays that they put it in, it's the same diamond, but it looks totally different in one place than another, right? At home, like my wife, I bought her some rings like when we got married, and at home, you're like, man, it's looking dull. And we'll go to that store and they'll clean it with this stuff, right? And then it doesn't look that different, but they'll put it under this light. They're like, see? And dude, it's like hitting you in the eye. I'm like, whoa. And it never looks like that again when you leave out of there, right? What's the difference? The frame, right? The diamond didn't change, The frame did. Y'all with me? Many people, guys, are living beneath God's promises because you're looking through the wrong frame. Many of y'all have a real skewed identity of who you are because you're looking through the wrong frame. Many of y'all have been told things about your life and about you that have hurt and that have cut. Many of y'all have been under abuse, and there's so much fear and there's so much anxiety and hurt, right? And it's not that that's who you are. It's just that that's what you've had to do to survive. And that's the frame you look through. I'm sure people have said something negative towards you, right? That stuck with you for a long time. You know what I'm saying? Man, and it's hard to pull out of that, man. And so we live beneath what God says about us simply because we're looking through the wrong frame, man. That's why knowing this is so incredibly important, man, because this gives me a new frame. This says I'm a masterpiece, created new to do the good things He's planned for me long ago. Right? He says I'm new. I don't have to walk around and say I'm Josh and I'm an addict. I don't have to say that I'm ADD. I don't have to say that I'm big diagnosis, bipolar, and borderline, whatever they say out there. You know what I'm saying? I don't have to say that. Why? Was that diagnosis real to them? Yes. They were looking at my life through a frame of you're broken. There's something wrong up here, right? And I believe that frame. Right? It's very easy for us to believe the framework that somebody else views us through, right? And then when I read this, and the first day I went into the program that I went to, man, he said, "Hey, champion," and I was like, cussed at him. I'm like, "Champion? Who? You don't even know me." And he's like, "I don't have to know you. I know what this word says, and I'm choosing, since you're here, to believe that you're here for a reason. And I'm looking at you. You can be a brand new creation if you give your heart to the Lord. Old things pass away, all things become new." And he shared 2 Corinthians 5:17 with me. Right? And absolutely, my defenses came down. Right? I started to just I almost got emotional right then. I wasn't gonna cry at that point because I'm a man, and I wasn't gonna let anybody at that point see me cry. I don't care now, but man, it absolutely immediately began to change, man. Listen, the enemy can't always stop God's purposes, right? God's purposes are God's purposes, and sometimes they're just going to happen no matter what He says. But sometimes He simply convinces you to interpret your circumstances incorrectly. Y'all with me? He gets you to interpret what's going on in your life in a wrong way, man. One wrong perspective can imprison someone longer than any chains ever could. I know people today in their 70s that I counsel with that are still dealing with frameworks they had when they were in high school and college. And they're still doing drugs. And they were wealthy and they're still wealthy. They had a career, they had a good job, they're retired now. But man, they just can't break out of it. And it's like confusing. You look at this life and the situation, you're like, how? How could you throw everything? You have kids that are old, you have grandkids. How could you still? And he sits in there and he's like, I don't know. And you start to get down to it, man. And it's not that he doesn't love Jesus. He goes to church. He serves in the church. He does food pantry, like all these things that he does, man, to be involved. But one wrong perspective about himself, and it keeps him bound up. It keeps him from experiencing what God said he can experience, man. So remember, Romans 12 doesn't say be transformed by changing your circumstances. How many of y'all have had a rough time and wanted to run and change your circumstances? All right. I always say this: wherever you go, there you are. Can't run from you. You could run from situation, but the situation's not your problem. You're the problem, right? When I remember one time my pastor, I was having all these issues, man. I'm telling him about it, and he said, "What's the common denominator in the 14 things you just said?" And I was like, "This place." And he's like, "No, you are. You're the common denominator, and everybody you have a problem with. You don't think that you're the problem." And I was like, "You might have something there," right? I was like, "Man." So what did I have to do? I had to change my framework, right? I had to say it's not everybody, because I've had a problem with people my whole life. I've fought my whole life. I've argued my whole life. I had a hard time respecting people my whole life. So what was the problem? The framework. I was saying you're the problem, and if you don't fit my mold of what a girl looks like or a guy looks like, then we ain't cool, right? And then I went to this, and it says we're supposed to have brotherly love and kindness for who? Everyone. And I was like, whoa, my framework is jacked, right? I am the problem. And so I began to view life through a different framework. I started to say, and my staff will tell you years ago, I've said it a lot. I don't say it as much anymore, but I still say it. That's why I always say you put a 10 on everybody's forehead. What does that mean? If I'm rating you, put the 10 on your forehead, not because you've earned it, not because you've deserved it, right? You might be living way beneath that 10. You might be a punk. You may be, right? But I can't go around letting you control my emotions and jacking my day up because I'm looking at you through this framework. I gotta say, you know what? You're 10. You might not be living like it. That's Jesus was the master of that. He got these bum disciples that were rough around the edges, and he says, you have a calling, you have a purpose. I'm equipping you. You're going to change the world. They didn't think that, but he saw that in him. He was the master at giving them trust and respect way before they earned it, right? Man, it's important. That doesn't mean you let people come walk all over you, and you can set boundaries. Say, you know what, if you're not going to live beneath this and there's a boundary, you're not going to be in my life. I'm not saying everybody has to come and you have to let everybody walk on you. That's not what I mean, man. But I had to change my lens about that, man. It doesn't say change your circumstances. It says be transformed how? Renewing of your mind. Renewing of your mind. That means my thinking has to change. But I'm about to be 44. My thinking has to change. Can it still change? Yes. It's going to change till the day I die, hopefully, because if you're not growing, you're dying, right? I don't want to be dying, man. So hopefully it's going to, man. God changes lives by changing perspectives. That's why one of the first things when you guys come here, what do I hammer into your mind over and over every service? Identity, identity, identity. You're not allowed to sit in the circle here and say, hey, I'm broken, I'm this. Nope, it's not talk. You put a quiet vest on, you won't talk ever, right? Because that's not who you are. I refuse to let you look through that lens anymore. That people that have no idea what they're talking about just want to collect money off you, give you your identity. No, that's not who you are. God, if I was a coach and you made a mistake and I sat you down and I said, okay, every day you have to say you suck. Every day. Hey, I'm Mike and I suck at football. All right. You think you're ever going to be good? You think you're ever going to amount to anything? Even if you have a good play, you're still going to be like, man, he's watching me. You're going to be on eggshells all the time, wondering if you're good enough, if you're performing good enough, right? But what about if I said, hey, man, that was a really bad play, but I've watched you and you're better than that, and you're the hardest worker on the team, and hard work surpasses natural talent any day. You're about to kill it. Imagine if I came at him with that. The facts are the same. He screwed up, right? But how he carries himself the rest of the time on this team, right? So I can't let a preacher get up and say, people can't do this, people can't do that. No, what's the word of God say? And that's the framework that we decide to look through. Y'all with me? Yeah. So reframing, it's a cognitive neuroscience term. I can't even spell that, so I don't even know what that means. I just know it's people that are really smart, way smarter than I am, right? But reframing just means seeing what God sees. When he looks upon you, what do you think he sees? Think about it, man. Right? Think about this. It says, while you were still sinners, what did he do? Gave his life for you, died for you, right? I wasn't doing good yet. People weren't honoring him yet. But he says, while you were still jacked up, doing what you wanted to do, when you wanted to do it, how you wanted to do it, he gave his life for you. Why? Because he looked at you through a framework of everyone has a calling, giftings, purpose. And if we don't fulfill what God's called us to do, it puts a hole in history. He sees us through that framework. Right? What Ephesians 2:10 says, for you are God's masterpiece. Let me tell you what that means, man. That word workmanship, masterpiece, it means a whole bunch of words, positive, good, descriptive words that when you put them together, it makes like a poem, right? And if you zoom out from that poem, y'all ever see them pictures of like Jordan and stuff? It's like thousands and thousands and thousands of pictures of him like zoomed out, and it's like his head, his face. And when you zoom in, it's a lot of little pictures that make up that big one. That's what masterpiece means, man, right? So you get all these words that God says, champion, overcomer, redeemed, loved, accepted, forgiven, man, all these things. And when you zoom out, man, it creates a masterpiece in a beautiful frame that everybody can see. That's how God sees you. That's what he says. You're a masterpiece, right? Now, I can choose to say, I don't believe that. I'm not going to let you paint something beautiful. I'm going to do it out. If we ask for forgiveness, what's he do? He's faithful and just to forgive us and cleanse us, man. So we have to see, man, the Greek word for the word transformed is like metamorpho, which is, what's that sound like? Metamorphosis, right? What happens when a caterpillar goes up in a cocoon, spins it, chills in there, and all of a sudden turns into a butterfly? It's totally different. It's totally transformed. Everything about it is different, right? That's what this word means, man. So it's a complete inward change. It's an absolute, I can describe it a little more, but you get it. It's a complete inward change. Nothing about that caterpillar is left. Now it's a beautiful butterfly. Now it's flying in places it could never go. That's what that word means. Transformation begins way before behavior change. So I want to change my behavior. Everybody in here is too rebellious to just get me to change your behavior. You might conform for a minute, but you're going to say, screw you one day. I'm going to do what I want to do. Nobody in here is good enough, nice enough to just say, hey, let me change your behavior, and you live that for the rest of your life. Like, no one's going to do that. All right. So what happened? There has to be a metamorphosis. There has to be an inward transformation in order to see the outward changes. That's why we just did baptism. What were baptisms? What is it? You're standing in the water. You're saying, this is my old life. You go into the water. It's dead. I'm leaving it in there, right? I'm going to come up completely transformed, completely metamorphosed. That's not even a word, but I'm using it, right? Make a shirt with that on there. Then I'm coming up transformed. I'm coming up. I went down as a butterfly. Can't do much. Stuck on the ground, right? Can't do a whole lot, man. Like susceptible to anybody and everything. I don't have much strength. I don't have much arm. I don't have anything. But I'm going down and I'm coming up and I'm soaring on wings as eagles, right? That's what it means. So that's what transformation means, man. It begins when your thinking changes. Now, your thinking is the lens that you're looking through. That's when transformation begins, man. So the enemy attacks your mind because your perspective determines your direction. I always say your life's always moving in the direction of your strongest thoughts. Always. You don't like what's happening in your life? Don't change your behavior, because you'll go back to it because you think that way. When my dad would yell at me for getting in trouble, I genuinely felt that for hurting him. I did. I'm not a psychopath that didn't have empathy and emotion. Like, I genuinely would get emotional and like, man, Dad, I'm sorry. I don't want to let you down. Right? But why did I always go back? For 12 years, I went back and I lied and I lied. I'll never do it again, Dad. I'm sorry. But did it look like I was sorry? Because I'm sorry without change is manipulation. So it looked like I was a jerk just manipulating them, right? What was the problem? It wasn't that I didn't want to change. You know how many times I got clean in the basement, sweating it out? Dozens, man. Dozen. I didn't want to be that guy. I didn't want my dad to look at me with disgust when he looked at me, man, and not even say anything when I nodded out and spilled cereal over my lap. Like, I hated that guy, right? But changing my behavior never lasted for a minute. But it never lasted, man. So the change began, the transformation began when this changed. When I went for sentencing after I graduated the program, I went in front of that judge. He allowed me to speak. Long story short, I won't get into the whole thing, but he said, I don't see this. Like, I don't see this kind of change. Like, what happened? And so I shared my testimony and I said, Your Honor, I've been in this courtroom so many times and I've looked at you and I've been able to play the part. Yes, sir. Act cordial. Y'all thought I was a nice young man and very polite and all that. But man, this never changed. So the minute I got out of this courtroom, I was already scheming up how I was going to make hooch in jail and who I was going to get involved with and the little scheming up how I was going to do what, man. I said, but I'm here today. And this, the part that nobody can see, this is genuinely different. He went, we'll see. And I was like, all right, man. And almost 19 and a half years later, right now, he saw, right? Because this changed and continues to change, man. The enemy attacks your mind again because your perspective determines which way you go. Always, man. If the enemy can define your situation, he can determine your response. Some of y'all's frames towards authority is wrong. So you always give the wrong response. Right? Why, man? Because he's determining your response as you define that situation. Authority's no good. That's a framework, right? So when you get it, no matter who it's from, I don't care who it's from. When you get it, man, you respond a certain way. That's not because they're jerks or not. You're always going to have people that are not good leaders in your life. Always. Always. You're going to have a boss. You're going to have a mother-in-law, a father-in-law. You're going to have somebody in your life, man, that is that way. Right? And you can't use that as an excuse to flip out all the time and be hot-headed or pout or storm off or leave or not be involved, man. Right? So you have to change the framework about it rather than try to change everybody in your life. And you go sit in the house like a hermit because, man, people are just jacked up. Your thinking's jacked up. All right? Your framework that you're looking at life in this world through is jacked up, man. Listen, in Numbers 13, There's a story where they sent spies out. Moses sent spies out to check out the land. Like, hey, go check this land out. There's 10 spies. Go check this land out. Come back. Give me a report. I want to know. What's the people like? What's the ground like? Is there fruit? Is there crops? Is there animals like? I need a detailed description. We about to go there, man. Right? And so I'm sorry, 12 spies. In Numbers 13, man, there was 10 and 2. I was thinking 8, 2, it was 10 and 2, man. And so they went and looked at the exact same land. That'd be like people coming here, right? Looking at the exact same grass, the exact same trees, the exact same church services, the exact same staff, all of it, man. Same grapes, same cities, same giants. 10 of them came back. They said, we're grasshoppers. This land devours people, right? We're done if we go there, man. It's going to be horrible. Then you had Joshua and Caleb. That's why I named my son Caleb, man. Right? You had Joshua and you had Caleb, man. And they came back and said, this is bread for us. This is going to feed us all. This is beautiful. This is what we've been looking for, right? It was the exact same perspective, the exact same view, the exact same people, the exact same food. 10 of them said this land devours people, man. We got to get out of here. We're like grasshoppers. We're nothing. They're going to squish us if we go there. The other 2 said this is our spot. This is where we're going, right? Same facts, different frame. Y'all see it, man? I'm telling you guys, y'all hearing me? Faith never ignores facts, right? Faith interprets facts through God's promises. So people say, well, I don't have enough faith, I guess, to get through it. It's not about faith. It doesn't ignore what's going on. Just because our finances, let's say, for example, let me say our finances now, I can't keep the lights on this month. I'm not like, well, I got faith and ignore it. No, I have to realize that that's a real situation. The facts are there, right? But my faith interprets those facts through the promises of God. And God said, David said, I've never seen his seed forsake. I've never seen the righteous forsaken or a seed begging for bread. Right? I've never seen it. So, okay, God, if David said that and you say you own the cattle on 1,000 hill and you'll give me what I need, man, and you'll bring me to it, you'll bring me through it. You're Jehovah Jireh. You're a provider. That's what the word says. Then I got to look at my facts through that faith, through that framework. Y'all with me? Because if I don't, I'm going to panic, shut the doors down, send y'all home and say, man, I'm a failure at this. I can't do it. Now I'm a guy that's working at McDonald's, man, just trying to make ends meet because I couldn't interpret the circumstances through the right lens. Y'all with me, man? A lot of ministries do this, guys. So faith interprets the facts through God's promises, man. Doesn't ignore what's going on, but it looks through his framework, man. There was 10 spies framed the giants bigger than God. They said, this is bigger than God. This, because God told them to go to this land. This is yours. Nope, can't go there, God. Right? They freaked out. But Joshua framed God bigger than the giants. And you see the difference, man. The entire nation followed whichever frame they chose to believe. All with me, man? We see there's things right now on social media. There's all these headlines on social media, right? And you get all these headlines. People freak out, change their life, start hoarding, like the whole mask thing with COVID, man. I wasn't a mask guy unless they made me. If I had to walk into a room somewhere, they said, shut your churches down. We never did any of that kind of stuff, man. You know what I mean? But an entire nation followed the frame that people put on the media and just followed. They didn't know. They didn't. Just a whole nation panicked, right? People lost businesses. People committed suicide. They lost their mental health, man. Everything began to change, man. The whole nation did. Guys, your family is going to follow the frame that you give them. Men, that's your job to provide the theme for your home, right? They're going to follow whatever frame you put in front of them, period. Your children are following your frame. Your spouses, your girlfriend, your family, whatever, they're following your frame. They're going to, right? Ladies, same thing, right? Your husband is going to be influenced by your framework. That's why Proverbs 31 about a godly woman, man, it says what she does to one of the most beautiful things about that. That's a high, tall order. Proverbs 31 is tough for me to read because I'm glad there wasn't a 31 for men because that's like, seems unattainable right there, right? It's a mark to press for, right? It's not that you have to be perfect. One of the things I love about that, man, is it says that her husband became an elder, right? And if you study that, man, I love the way that it describes it. He wasn't an elder. He wasn't even a leader, but his wife looked at him through the framework of a leader already. And she spoke to him like a leader. She respected him like a leader. She treated him like a leader. And guess how he started to act? like a leader. When he began to act through the framework that she saw him through, other people began to notice his leadership as well. And then they said, hey, man, we're going to put you in as an elder, right? Who does that, in my opinion, who gets the credit for that? That wife that is pumping him up and encouraging him and saying, man, you're the man, you're strong, you're a great leader, man, you're godly, you're getting this word, you're leading me well, you're leading your family well, you have integrity in the community, right? Like that's where it happened. That's where the change took place, because she decided to see him through the right frame. He saw himself through the same frame, and then everybody began to see him that way. You see how this works? That's why Ephesians 4 says, let no corrupt word come out of your mouth that breaks down, right? The only thing that's come out of your mouth is necessary for building up. Why? Because I already feel like a bum in here. I already feel like a failure in here sometimes. I already feel like I don't measure up in here sometimes. So what's our job as believers? To look at each other with the 10 on our forehead and say, man, that's why the Bible says he who refreshes others is himself refreshed. Those that gossip and are bitter and don't respect people the same, they're salty, they're miserable all the time, right? They act like children all the time. I know, because I've done it and I've been there and I've been that guy before, man. Your family's going to follow the frame you give them, man. Your church, right? That's why I love hearing certain testimonies here, and I love seeing how we do things here, right? Because I take responsibility for that. I've said for many years, I've been to seven of the same denomination church in 2 months traveling and preaching, and everyone does things drastically different. Like, why? Because the framework that the leader sets, right? They follow it. The church follows the frame that you preach, that you live. All right, staff, they're going to follow your frame. Graduates, they're going to follow your frame, right? That's what's going to happen, man. So, House of Freedom, like I ask myself often, what am I preaching? Like, what are we hearing? Are we talking more about darkness than we are light? I pray not. Right? I don't think we are, man. Are we talking more about addiction than deliverance? Heck no. Why? Because I don't want the framework to be around addiction, man. Are we discussing problems more than we're talking about the promises of God? I hope not. I don't know what you're doing behind closed doors, man, but I hope you're talking about the promises more than the problems that you see around you. Otherwise, you're going to be miserable because you're looking through a broken frame. This has been a treasure to so many people. Here's some right here. Graduate, this has been life changing and beautiful and restorative and all these other big words that you could use, man. But there's people here even right now that's looking through a broken frame. The picture's the same, the facts are the same, but the frame is different. You get what I'm saying? And so you see value or you see something that doesn't have value based on the frame you put around it. And that's not up to me. I'm not performing for anybody. I don't care to perform for anybody. That's up to you to choose to look through the proper framework if you're going to get what you came here to get. Right? Or you can look through the one that you've always had. Let me ask y'all a question. How has that worked out? For me, not too good. Right? Even now, I mean, I'm not saying I went back to drugs or nothing, but even in my marriage, if I look through a negative framework about myself or her, or marriage or family, or what I think she should have done, or vice versa, doesn't end good ever, man. Doesn't ever good end good, man. So we got to learn to frame every circumstance through God's word. Y'all with me, man? The enemy is the master of false frames. This is what he does. Like, he's the accuser of the brethren. He's a liar. The only thing he can do is lie. He has no power. He has no authority. He can't control you. He can't do anything to you as a believer except lie. The only power that he has is if you choose to believe his lies, if you give it to him. If you choose to believe the framework, y'all ever think, man, that person just don't like me. They've never said that. You've never talked to them. You just think, when I walk in a room, I just don't think they like me. Right? You're looking at them through a frame. Probably something happened in your past where something like that happened. You got trashed or something like that. So now that's just how you see the framework, man. Right? I used to walk into a room when I first became a leader, and like everybody would get quiet when I walked in. It used to bother me. Right? I remember I walked in when everybody got quiet. I was like, that's the best compliment I could get. Because that means when I walk in the room, you guys that are doing wrong, shut up and stop talking. That means you see me in a way that you're not going to talk about this crap around me. Thank God for the first time in my life, I'm not included in the shady crap. Right? And so I could have been like offended, like, oh, you guys don't like me, or I'm not cool enough to be involved. Or I could say, man, thank God they see something in me that they shut up with the garbage when I come around. Right? I had to reframe it. I couldn't get offended by it. I had to reframe it, man. Satan he rarely starts with lies that are unbelievable. Usually when he begins to lie to you, it's believable, right? It's something that you really see. It's something that could really be something. He begins with like distorted perspectives. That's where he starts. I don't care if it's with the job. I don't care if it's with law enforcement. I don't care if it's a government. I don't care if it's church, your wife, your children. He rarely starts with something that's like far-fetched, and he's like, no, that ain't true. You know what I mean? He starts with things that are believable, man. The enemy doesn't come and say, your wife's cheating on you. I know my wife wouldn't do that. I know she's loyal. I know she loves me, man. But you know what he does come in with? Like, you ain't going to be good enough for her, man. You're less than. You need to be better for her, right? You're never going to be able to please her. That's the crap that'll come in my mind. That could be believable because I have my days where I'm not at my best. I have my days where I feel like my armor's off, but I'm trying to put it on. But for some reason, man, I'm just having a hard time getting out of my head, right? And so he sneaks in and he starts to get me to look at myself through a framework of less than what he said, less than a leader of my home, less than the priest of my home, right? And if I let that go over one time, it's going to begin to affect me in a crazy real way, man. He begins with distorted perspectives, man. In Eden, in the Garden of Eden, what did he do to Adam and Eve? Adam and Eve walked with God in the cool of the day, like chilled with them, dude. Right? Perfect. No sin, no pain. They never seen death, like nothing. It was beautiful. It was like heaven on earth, man. Like beautiful. And how did he get Adam and Eve, especially Eve, to begin to change your tune? He reframed God. That's what he did. Right? He didn't say like something crazy unrealistic, man. No, man. Instead of seeing God as generous, Eve began to see him as restrictive. God said, you can have all this, anything. You rule the earth. You have dominion and authority over everything. Nothing's restrictive except this one fruit. Right? You just can't eat that fruit of the knowledge of good, and everything else, have at it. Right? And instead of framing, man, we are the most blessed humans ever. We don't have pain. We don't know death. We don't even know that death's real. Like we haven't made in the shade. I got the most beautiful woman on the face of the earth. You think that Adam and Eve were absolutely perfect for each other, right? They were made in his image without having any sin tainting their bodies or their lives. And God created Eve just for Adam as a helpmate. Couldn't have been a better relationship ever, right? Imagine being in a relationship and there's absolutely nowhere that you feel even a little bit bad or off or like you're not, like something's off. Like perfect, supreme self-esteem. They had no issues, man. But the enemy inner ear, all of a sudden she started to see God as restrictive, changed the framework, man. One conversation changed the frame. One. I've had this happen many times, God. That's why I don't do gossip here. Because I've tolerated before as a young minister, man. And people would come in and be like, Josh, I got to talk to you. And they start talking about so-and-so, right? And 3 weeks later, all of a sudden, I'm looking at so-and-so through a negative light. I'm like, they didn't even do nothing to me, man. Right? I'm starting to pick them apart a little bit in my mind. And I'm like, what is going on, man? And I entertained a different frame than the way that I viewed that person. Instead of shutting it down and saying, no, this is what God said. And if we're going to talk about it, they need to be here so we can help them work through it, right? It changed my frame. And I had to go to apologize to these people in the middle of church service. I walked up. There was a lady. I walked up here. I was like, listen, I am so sorry. Like, I'm back here. She was just worshiping God. When didn't even know I was there. So sorry, Carol, man. I'm back here and I'm trashing the way that you're worshiping. And I entertained this thought about you. And I shut it down. And I'm back here thinking, her husband was a graduate. Great dude. Greg, me and him would go fishing. They did nothing to me ever. But I entertained a negative framework and it stuck. And that's the way that I began to view her through, man. One conversation can change your frame. This is why it's so important, man, to be on your guard, man. Once the frame changed, what happened? Sin. They screwed up bad. They lost their secure status with God. They hid from God in bushes and hid. They all of a sudden knew they were naked. God took the initiative. He killed an animal, skinned it. They'd never seen death before. Imagine see this animal bleed out and the skin ripped off it and put on their bodies, man. Like that could have freaked them out, man. Right? They never knew it. But how did they get there? Just believe the frame. Believe the wrong frame, man. Once the frame changed, sin came. Right? Guys, you don't have to worry about falling into sin and garbage unless you have negative frames in your life. You never have to worry about getting caught up in gossip unless you have negative frames in your life. You're never going to have to worry about going back to that lifestyle. Am I going to smoke? Am I not going to smoke? Am I drink? Am I not going to drink? Am I do drugs? You don't have to worry about none of that if you change your frame, man. Like if you really genuinely believe what God says about you, when you know who you are, you'll what? Know what to do, right? It's the framework that you look through, man. And the devil still whispers today, God forgot you. Look at what happened in your life. You think if he was there, this would have happened? Like you think you would have lost your first child ever if God heard you? If the effectual fervent prayers of a righteous man really are answered, you don't think that your baby would have lived? Like, and the enemy whispers in your ear these things, and that crap's believable. When I was going through that situation, that was very believable to me, man. Like, God, are you hearing me? I even prayed rebellious prayers. Like, if you're hearing me, do this. Like, he's not a genie in a bottle getting ready to perform for me, but he loved me through it anyway because he knew I was going through it and struggling. But I had to really trust God for a long time, man. The devil whispered, God, he don't answer prayer. You're wasting your time. Church is pointless. What's the point? When I was a young buck, man, like you can't be Christians aren't cool. Like, what do you mean? And I remember always saying, I'll party when I'm old. I'll change when I'm old too. Right? Almost didn't make it to old. Like I'm old down. Thank God I'm serving God, but almost didn't make it there, man. Right? Listen, he says you'll never change. The enemy will whisper in your ear, this struggle defines you. I mean, don't raise your hand, but how many of y'all still look at your identity by where you're at right now and what's happened in your life? Like this defines you. No, no, man. I used to think, what woman's going to want to be with somebody that sold drugs and done the stuff that I've done? Who in the world is going to want to be with me that's a godly Christian woman that loves Jesus filled with the Holy Ghost? There ain't going to be one. I've had so many women say that, man. What guy, what godly Christian man that has kept himself and pure in the sight of God? What godly man? I have a cool story, man. This guy sold meth. He was from Indiana. His name was Dusty Small, man. Sold meth. It was like an episode of Cops. Like the cops were watching him making crazy money. It was like an episode of Cops. He took off. He had a meth lab in the back of his truck. He was running, wrecked into a cornfield down in a creek, set his truck on fire, like tried to hit in the bank like Rambo, and he sinks down in the mud. You know what I'm saying? And the cops walked up and like, you're an idiot. And basically pulled him out of there, dude. He was just methed out of his mind. And he came in the program, graduated, ended up working for years, went to Bible college. At Bible college, he's like, what woman, like, sold meth? Like, he was a womanizer. You know what I'm saying? That's what it fueled in him. And he's like, so what woman with my past is going to want me that's in a Bible college? None. But I desire a relationship. So he met this girl named Chantel Small, man. It wasn't Small then, but Chantel. And they start liking each other. She's like she's like a different nationality. I don't know if it's Filipino. I don't think it's that, but something like that. Beautiful young lady, man. And he starts talking to her and he's panicking, like, I got to tell her my story, like up front. As soon as she finds this out, she's gone. Like this woman had never been with a man in her life. She said she kissed one dude one time, like briefly. Never been with a man, kept herself pure. She's in Bible calls, and he's like, that girl's never going to say, I kept myself for this dude who's been with all these women and did what he did. Heck no, man. Heck no. And so he's like, I sat her down and I just told her, like, listen, I got to be upfront with you. This is what I did. I like had an issue with like that, the whole thing, had a really twisted view about it. And like, this is what I did. So if you want to go, you just go. Right. She looked at him. I don't know word for word what happened. Basically, she said, you're brand new in Christ. That's what the Bible says, right? You came to Jesus. You're new. You're a new creation. That's who you were. That's not who you are. They dated. They got married. He pastors a big church down in Louisiana, or I think Louisiana. Got 2 or 3 kids, man. Right? Been married for probably 15 years now, man. Doing great. Now she's only been with one man in her whole entire life, and that's him. Right? And he had this framework, like, who in the world is going to want to be with me when I live that life? But guess what God did? He showed him, not only can I give you a girl, right, but I'm going to give you the exact opposite of what you think you would ever be able to have. That's how good God is, man, right? And God really quickly was like, let me show you the framework that I see you through. I don't see you as old broken dust that had lived this life. I see you genuinely as a new creation. Y'all with me, man? Yeah. God could do the same thing for you, man. But the enemy says your struggles define you. You're damaged forever. You're broken. Those are frames, guys. That's not truth. Those are frames. When you sit in a circle and have said, I'm this, that's a frame. That's not truth. It's not the core of who you are. Right? I mean, I bet you in this room, I can say, get out a piece of paper and I want you to write down the things that people have called you and said to you in arguments, man. I bet you we could fill pieces of paper, almost everybody in this room, right? Almost all of us. That's not truth. Those are frames. And I don't even fault them. That's just the frame that they was looking through. When my pastor shared a story about being abused by his father and all this stuff, man, And the fact that he could say, that's not my enemy, that's a victim of the enemy. How? Change the frame about him. My dad didn't, he wasn't born and have a vendetta. I'm going to have a child and abuse the crap out of him for his life and molest him and tell his mom I'm going to cut her throat and we're going to have to watch her bleed to death. Like, that's not what happened, man. He grew up, he was tormented, became an alcoholic. And he's like, my dad wasn't my enemy. He was a victim of the enemy. That man now has been able to pastor and be my pastor for all these years, man, and let all that anger and pain and shame that comes along with the man having that abuse, man. How? Because he chose to reframe it. The facts of what happened happened. I've never experienced anything remotely close to that, right? The facts of what happened happened. But he said, I'm going to let God help me change the framework about it. I'm going to let God help me change the filter. And because of that, that man's never touched drugs in his life. He's never even tasted alcohol in his entire life, right? He's retired now. But that was the guy that helped me. You know what I always said? Don't even come near me unless you put a 50 piece in a pipe and have done that one time. Don't even, unless you put a needle in your arm and drank yourself into a stupor and you wake up, don't even know what state you're in the back of your truck. Don't come to me. You wake up in jail, just 3 days. You don't even know how you spent 3 days in a holding cell, but you're there. Like, don't come to me and try to help me. You can't. You can't. And guess who the guy that helped me was? The guy that's never done an illegal drug, never even tasted alcohol in his entire life. That's the man that poured into my life, right? And you know what I had to do with him? I had to change the framework. When I met him, I was like, who is this Mr. Rogers looking old man? He had these little glasses on, had like a sweater vest on. His hair was parted just right, just like all tucked in, like perfect little old man dress shoes. And I was just like, come on, bro. This is where y'all brought me. This is where I have to go for a year and deal with this dude, right? That man absolutely helped the change. I would be dead if it wasn't for that man pouring into my life, man. I really would be. God helped me to change my framework about it, man. The devil frames failure as identity. I'm probably going to bring this, then we're going to bring it to a close, guys. Like, how many of y'all have failed, and then you have the thought, man, I'm a failure? Why? Because he takes a frame and he makes it your identity. That's his job, man. You struggled, they start to say you are a struggle. Like, this is who you are. You've been anxious, and you start to declare, I have the anxiety. It drives me nuts when people say that, but I've done it, right? It's not happening to you. Anxiety is a light on the dashboard that signals there's something going on. Anxiety is not the problem. We take pills and do all the stuff for anxiety. It's not even the issue. That's why it stays and it doesn't go anywhere, man, right? It's not like we have anxiety in a moment. We have an anxiety, and he says, you have anxiety. Like we struggle with drugs for a minute. He says, you're an addict forever. You can get clean for 20 years, still got to say you're an addict. That's what he does. He takes your struggle and he makes it your identity. Right? And and we even see it in the Bible, man. Like the lady with the issue of blood. Don't even know her name. Right? It's in the Bible, man. She had an issue for 12 years. She was bleeding and couldn't stop it. When you're bleeding, you're unclean. She had an encounter with Jesus. He healed it and changed her, but we don't even know her name. The lady with the issue of blood, Rahab the prostitute. It's in there. Right? That's what she's known by. Right? Rahab. Like, we take a moment, and so quickly that can become our identity, man. If we're not careful, man, we struggle. It says you're always a struggle. God separates identity from behavior. He's a master at this, man. The devil combines them. God separates them. Y'all with me, man? One produces repentance. The other produces shame. So if you're walking in shame in any way, that's because you're believing the lies of the enemy and that framework. If you say, man, I'm this, but I'm ready to make this different today. I'm ready to get Jesus in my heart and walk a totally different way. One means you're changing your life and you're going the other direction. This thing that happened isn't my identity. It's actually the turning point for my life. Someone said, man, that car wreck, I was in a hospital bed for a year, flat on my back. Wasn't that miserable? Yes, it was, right? And it was the emblem that I was a drug addict and a failure every day in my mom and dad's living room in the stinking hospital bed. Yes, it was miserable. But if I didn't go through that, I would never be where I'm at today, man. So I'm looking at that as something that God allowed to happen for a reason and for a purpose. I'm thankful for it. I hurt every day. My calf's cut out of my leg. I've had 7 surgeries on this ankle. Like, yeah, there's a lot, right? Every step I take, I know that I was in a car wreck. Every morning I get up, I remember I'm full of metal and cadaver bone, right? But would I change it? Absolutely not, man. Right? Because if I didn't go through that again, I would never be here, man. If I take that thought and I remember you feel like this because you were dope fiending a failure. You didn't listen to anybody. What's that framework going to cause me to do? I'm a bum. I'm a failure. My life's ruined. I'm never going to be able to do anything, man. When I was battling depression, this is what was happening. I was saying I'm never going to be able to run with my kids. I'm never going to be able to coach my kids in the gym. I'm never going to be able to get a football field and wrestle with them and teach them how to wrestle and play sports. I couldn't walk on it. It hurt so bad. And then I got my ankle fused, and the fuse didn't take. And then it was broke, and I had like a club foot. They said, we're going to have to cut your leg off. And I'm like, man, I'm never going to. I looked at this framework as like, man, this is all bad. Fell into depression, man. Wanted to take my life like 7-8 years ago, man. Right, wanted to try to almost, man. Like I was going through the process. Obviously, I was scared to death, man, because I didn't want to go to hell, and I didn't want to leave my family. But I was struggling so bad. It wasn't even the facts that were bad. It was the framework that I was looking at life through. And guess what? Never happened. What never happened was the frame that the enemy caused me to look through never became reality, right? So when I begin to see that just because I have that framework doesn't mean that that's set in stone. I can let God give me a new frame and redefine my life no matter what, man. Seen this video last night of this Olympian. She's a runner. And in the video, she's like palsied up and like can't walk, like coming downstairs. And I was like, oh, man, how sad is that? Like, like your identity is you're a runner, you're an Olympian, and you get MS, and like you palsy up and can't even like walk downstairs normal now. But then I thought that was the end, so I was like sad for her. Right? I'm like, oh man, that's not fair. Then all of a sudden, it's like I had to teach myself how to walk and use my hands again. And it shows her cycling on a bike, and she became like an Olympian champion for cycling. And I was like, oh wow, even though she's palsied. And then all of a sudden, it panned. She had a setback and she got jacked up again. She lost her speech, lost her be able to walk, like literally all the way in a bed, palsied up. Right? And I'm like, man, how sad is it? She comes back, wins record, then it happens again. Right? And she's like, I had this constant fear. What if I get better and something else happens and my whole life's changed again? All of a sudden it panned to her back on a track, sprinting, breaking a world record. Right? And I'm like, holy crap, dude. How did this girl do this? And I was studying this like this week. I think I just seen it last night. I was like, that's what it means to reframe your situation. I probably, the minute I palsied up and got that diagnosis, I probably would have been in a peanut butter pity party in the corner, man, whining, complaining. Everything that I am just got taken from me. Why, God? Why is this fair? Right? But she said, this isn't my final destination. And with it sucks, but with hard work and getting back, I believe I can get back to who I was and better, even better. And she became even better. Y'all with me, man? You guys might have had setbacks and situation, but you got to reframe it, man. God constantly reframes people. I'm going to give you just a couple really quick. Joseph, y'all remember the story of Joseph? Go read it this week. Genesis, man. Joseph had a dream, was his father's favorite out of all the brothers. He got thrown into a pit, sold, forgotten, falsely accused, and was thrown in prison. Not prison like we know prison, right? Every chapter in his life looked like failure. Read the story of Joseph. It's crazy. Like, it's just so unfair. But in Genesis 50, verse 20, that's one of my favorite scriptures in the Bible. He said, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good. All of that, I'm not even hitting the surface of what happened to him. In the years of, this wasn't like in a week. This is years, in at least over 2 years in the prison, let alone all the slavery and pit and brothers and going back and telling her dad he got killed by an animal, right? So your dad's not even coming because he thinks you're dead, right? And he says, you meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. Joseph reframed the betrayal. Instead of saying they ruined my life, he said, God put me right here. And he became a leader of a nation, man, right? He could have been salty, man. David came up, and there's Goliath mocking an army. David's not even a soldier. He's there to bring his brothers some sandwiches because they're hungry. His dad's like, hey, you nothing. Basically, you tending sheep. That's the lowliest job there was. Go take your brothers some food. Do something that makes our family proud, basically, right? So he goes and he sees this Goliath. And instead of looking at Goliath like hundreds of thousands of soldiers did, said, that's a problem. None of us are going to go against him. He's unbeatable, man. David looked at him and said, who is this uncircumcised Philistine? Right? King Saul came, was like, whoever kills him gets my daughter. And he's like, bet. Goes, he gets 5 smooth stones. Why 5? Y'all know? Huh? Goliath had 4 brothers just as big as he was. You go to Chronicles and read it, man, right? So he's like, I got one for Goliath. In case his brothers want to come and get some, I got one for them too, right? He was a little ruddy boy, it says. And if you read that story, it says David ran towards him. Goliath he said his spear was like a weaver's beam. A weaver's beam on average is about 300 pounds. Imagine having the staff of your spear 300 pounds, dude. And you're chucking that thing around like that's how big Goliath was, man. He had a man that went in front of him and held a shield for him. He not only had his armor on, he had other people armor for him, right? And David ran at him with the sling. You know what he said? My God delivered me from the hand of a bear. My God delivered me from the hand of a lion. He's going to deliver me from you too, you uncircumcised Philistine, right? About to cut your head off, man. He goes, he slings him, and the historian said it's impossible with the armor he had on to let that shot hit right here. And this pastor was like, you're right, it is impossible. It's supernatural. And that's the God that we serve, right? Amen. And then he went, he took Goliath's sword, cut his head off, and gained victory. Got the girl, went to be the king, man, like down the road. You know what I'm saying? Everyone else said this is impossible. David said, man, I got him. He reframed him. No one else did, but he did, man. Everyone else saw size. David saw God as way bigger than that crazy giant. And he's already helped me through so much. He's going to help me here, man. Think about Elisha, 2 Kings 6. There's a whole army surrounding the town he's in, and they're there to kill him. And they wake up in the morning, and he's got a new servant. The old servant was a bum, got thrown out. This new one comes. He doesn't yet know Elijah very well, right? And the servant came out, and he panicked. He's like, Elisha, where shall we do? Like, it's a weird writing the way it's said. He basically was saying, where do I go? What do I do? Where do we hide? How do we get out of here? They're all here, and they're here just for me. They're here just for you, but I'm with you, so they're here for us, right? What do we do, man? He panicked. And here's what Elijah did. He came out, and he was like, Lord, open his eyes. Basically, he said, change his framework. Help him to see it differently, man. Notice, God didn't send more angels. God didn't scatter that army, right? None of that happened, man. They were already there. God changed his perspective. Sometimes the miracle isn't in changing your circumstances, y'all. Sometimes it's changing what you see in the midst of it, man. Y'all with me? Amen. Jesus was the greatest at this, man. No one reframed like Jesus. The cross looked like defeat. He called it victory, right? The grave looked final. He called it temporary. He folded his face napkin in a nice little square. In Jewish custom, if you're eating and you throw your rag down when you're done, that means I'm not coming back. But if you folded your napkin at the table and you had to go use the restroom when the waiter saw it, they're like, oh, he's coming back. That folding means you'll be back. It's just temporary. I just had to go and I'll be right back. So when he left the tomb, his grave clothes were there, but the face napkin was folded nice and neat. He was telling everybody, I told you I'll be back. Just give me a second. Right? He literally showed that the grave looked final. He told them this is temporary. The disciples saw 5 loaves and 2 little fish, 2 little sardines, bro. What did he see? Enough to feed 15,000 people and have leftovers for every disciple to take home. Went to Texas Roadhouse the other day. One of the most horrible things that, man, I ate it all. Like, I was like, man, there's no leftovers. That's the best part, is to take it home and eat more later on what you just paid for, right? The disciples all had leftovers from 5 loaves and 2 fish and 15,000 people. Like, what are we going to do? Jesus saw enough, man. The woman that was caught in the act of adultery, and everybody out there's like, we're stoning her, kill her. She deserves it. Like, we caught her in the act, man. What did Jesus see? Restoration. He says he reached down, everybody's accusing her. He said, you who's without sin, cast the first stone. And he bent down and he wrote in the sand. And it doesn't say what he wrote in the sand, but history says, historians say that they believe he was writing their sins in the sand. And they saw it, and it says one after another ran out. Right? Oh, I'm not throwing that stone, right? I'm gone. You who was without sin, cast it. They started putting, it's you. You're a punk. You're a liar. You gossip, right? They're like, I'm out of here. Every one of them left, man. Jesus was awesome, bro. Peter saw sinking in the water when he's walking on water. What did Jesus see? Faith, right? He was everywhere he went, he reframed hopeless situations, man. So we got to let the Holy Spirit help us to renew our frame, man. Paul says this, and we're going to pray, man. He says, whatever's true, Philippians 4:8, whatever's true, noble, pure, whatever's true, noble, just, pure, lovely, good, and praiseworthy. If there's anything good or praiseworthy, you meditate on these things. What's that mean? In my relationships, my job is to find the true, good, pure, lovely, good, and praiseworthy in you. That's my job. Everyone in this room can pick each other apart. And we're all full of pride, and we all struggle with that sometimes, right? But what's my job? My job is to find the good. It takes a real man to find the good in you and pull it out and cause you to begin to act like I'm treating you. We've all been trashed. We've all been talked down to. We don't need any of that garbage anymore, right? We have to change our framework about it, man. The Holy Spirit continually challenges our thinking. He says, what does my word say, man? He doesn't say, what does your fear say? Doesn't say, what does culture say? Doesn't say, what did they do in your family? What would they say, man? He doesn't say, what does your emotion say? He says, what have I spoken? What have I already gave you in my word, man? So instead of saying, I'll never change, say, he who began a good work in me is going to complete that work. That's Philippians 1:6, man. Instead of saying, I'm surrounded, saying, those who are with us are more than those that are against us. 2 Kings 6, man. Instead of saying, I'm too broken, we say his strength is made perfect in weakness. All right, that's what we say. Instead of I'm stuck, my steps are ordered by the Lord. I'm in preparation mode. I'm loading. My future is loading. I'm getting ready to launch into something beautiful. I'm not stuck. I'm being prepared. I'm not stuck. I'm getting ready for what's next, man. Right? I'm not lonely. God's preparing me to be the best helpmate to a husband that I could ever be. I'm not lonely. God's preparing me to be able to help my wife and family see through right frameworks, right? And so for the time, I'm going to let him do it, man. And God's revival can't happen without it, man. An example that I read yesterday, man. I said an art teacher held up two identical paintings, and one was framed with like broken wood around it. It was jacked up and kind of like falling apart. The other had like this like beautiful gold, custom gold frame. And every student, it's a true story, every student in the room, they said, which one's more valuable? Every student said that one immediately. There was no time, right? No time. The one with the gold frame, absolutely more valuable. But the paintings were absolutely identical. They were both copies of original that got put on the same wall with the same nails, but in different frames, right? Every single one of them said, um, that one's more. Guys, listen, what altered the perception? Frame, man. Many Christians believe they don't have much value because you're viewing yourself through a broken frame. All right, you believe that you can't because you're viewing yourself through a broken frame, man. You're looking through a frame of shame instead of the frame of the finished work of the cross for your life, man. So maybe some people need to give God your circumstances in here, man. You can't change your circumstances, but you can change the frame that you look through them. Y'all with me? You can change the framework, man. Other people need to change their perspective, right? You've been calling it punishment. Maybe that's come out of your mouth and you feel like you're being punished. God says this is preparation. Get over yourself. Change your frame, right? So many people say, man, this is delay. I just need to get out there and start my life, man. God said, this is development. This is what development looks like. It takes time. You can go to IKEA and get crap furniture. It falls apart in a year, but it's pressed in seconds. You can let a custom woodworker make you some furniture, and you're going to pass it down to your grandkids when they come up and buy their first home, right? One is preparation, one slapped together just to get through it, man. It's a big difference, man. You've been calling it loss because, man, you feel like things that you won or you had are gone. You're losing them. God calls it pruning. And he says, I prune those that I love even, right? First, those are the ones that get pruned first. Mine, right? My people, man. You've been calling it impossible. But God says what? With me, what's possible? All things, man. So let's bow our heads for a minute, man. I want you to ask yourself just for a moment, man, what lie have you accepted as truth?